All right, this is the most important video to really understanding the functions and how to use the CRM. So as I go through this video, there's three main types of users that would use the CRM. And depending on the company, if it's just a one-man show, one user would do all three types. Or if it's a bigger organization, it's broken up into office, sales or estimators, and then production management. And as I walk through this, I'll explain, hey, this is the office part of the CRM and what they would be managing. Here is the sales or estimators part. And then lastly, here's the production manager part. But I wanted to make the point, although different users may only interact with different parts, I think all the users, it's good for them to at least watch this video all the way through and really understand how everything comes together. I just know from experience that'll really eliminate questions and just allow them to really maximize the utility of the CRM. All right, so what I really want to do in this video is walk you through from beginning to end how a contact would come in. It would be a lead, then it would turn into an estimate, then it would turn into a job. But before I do that, I want to give you a tour of the different parts of the CRM and specifically the ones that are related to that process. And the two main functions of the CRM is one is to just maximize efficiency. So after it's set up and you're using it, just save you a ton of time throughout the whole process of getting leads, selling the job, and producing the job. But then the other, and what I think is the most important function, is having complete data on your business and having data integrity. First, I want to start at the dashboards, and these are customizable. You can make as many dashboards as you want. You can create as many of these widgets as you want. You can really go all out and add titles and themes and pictures and color code things. But the dashboards and your reporting, it's taking all that data and it's allowing you to see it in useful ways. And really, it's unlimited to like how you can chop it up, view it, analyze it. But the reason I wanted to start there is I wanted to explain, if you have a job, every job should have an estimate, and every job should also have a lead, and every job should be connected to a contact, and in the commercial world, also a company. But not all contacts have leads. You might get a contact, someone goes to your website, fills out a form, it goes into their CRM, and they're trying to sell you something. That's not a lead. That's a solicitor, which we'll get to here in a second. But my point is, not all contacts are leads, and not all leads are estimates. You're going to get leads, and for whatever reason, you're not going to be able to give them an estimate. But you want to have all those leads in there, which I'll demonstrate a little bit later. But if you get really busy and you're booked out 2 months, how many leads came in during that time where you didn't give them an estimate because of a scheduling conflict? That's good information to know. But that's why you have to track all your leads. And then the leads that do turn into estimates, you want to know, well, how many turn into an estimate? And then not every estimate is going to have a job. But those are the main things, is you've got a lead, an estimate, and a job. And you want to make sure you're tracking all those and not like losing information or having the scenario where you're only really keeping the job info or the estimate info, or you're deleting the lead after it turns into an estimate. And a big reason for that is for the reporting. It makes it much easier to build reports. So you can see like, okay, how many leads did I get? How many leads did I get during this time? How many leads did I get from this source? What's the difference in lead conversion from this lead source versus that lead source? What's the booking rate on these lead sources? What's the average job size? That's what I mean by data. But enough about that. Let's just look at this view you have here. So on the left, you've got this sidebar that has different menu options. You can always close this or expand it. So if you don't see it, it's probably just closed and you can open it up. And you'll notice when you click into these things, if there's more menu options for it, they'll be displayed across the top right here. So if we like go into marketing, you can see there's all these other things up here. Sometimes there won't be extra menu options. Like if we click on the mobile app, this is just giving you the links that you can go to download the mobile app. And there's no extra menu options here. But that's how you'd navigate, is you'd go somewhere. If there's any extra menu options related to, in this case, the contacts, they'll be displayed across up there. Now, the very bottom one, the last one, is settings. And if you click here, it's going to open up another set of menu options. And these menu options are not used as much, and they're more about the settings of the CRM. So you shouldn't have to be in here too often. But here's where your billing is, and here's where your staff will be. But that's the general layout of the CRM and how to navigate to places. And when we talk about going from a lead to an estimate to a job, I'm going to focus for this video on contacts and opportunities. So on this contact page, right here in the middle, we'll list all the contacts. It'll show you the total amount of contacts you have here and how many pages that is. And the default, at least at the time of this video, is 20 contacts on a page. And it'll show you how many pages you have here, and you can shift through the pages. You can also click this drop down and change it if you wanted to have like 100 contacts per page. When you select the contacts, you can click there, and it's just going to select the ones on the page. If you want to select all, you'd click here. Now underneath this menu bar, you'll notice it says all. That's all contacts. And these other ones are called Smart List, which is just all your contacts filtered. And you can create as many Smart Lists as you want. I have another video on that you could watch. But if we click one, you'll notice, hey, now it's only showing 8 contacts. And you'll see right here more filters. You can click there, and it'll show you the filters that are applied to your contacts, so you can get an idea of what you're seeing. Now on your lists, there's columns, and you can click here and you can add a lot of different columns. And then depending on the column type, if you click on the arrows, you can organize them in chronological order or alphabetical order. And you'll see they're separated by these lines. If you click anywhere in here, I usually just click on the name. It's going to open up this page, which is your contact view. You'll notice in the top right here, as you go between contacts, what changes is the last random letters and numbers after the last backslash. That's actually your contact ID. So every contact has a unique ID, and you can copy this link right here and put it anywhere else. And as long as you're logged into the CRM, if you click on that link, it'll take you to this contact page. Now the contacts are currently being worked on to be updated, so the view may look a little different in the future, but it's the same concepts. On the left-hand side here, all these are what are called fields. And you'll notice in every section of the field, there's a blue folder that you can click and it'll expand or collapse those fields. You can also rearrange these fields, add new ones. You can watch the video on custom fields for that. Now one of these folders is discarded fields. This will eventually disappear in the future, but this discarded fields, you never want to touch these. These are for automations that run in the background, so you never want to put any data in here. Just leave it alone, but that's what that is. And like I said, it'll disappear in the future. And then you'll see it's separated by the fields, and then we've got some different folders in here. And if you click on them, it'll open it up. So we've got tags, automations, and opportunities. You can add a tag to the contact. We'll talk about that in a minute, and it'll show any tags that are added here. And if you click the X, it'll remove that tag. Automations, it'll show past automations that ran and any active automations that are currently running for this contact. So you'll notice, this is a new lead I just created. There's a lot of automations running in the background. There's 74 that are built in. And if you actually click right here, it'll take you to the automation. If it's one of the system built automations, it'll take you to a page that basically says you don't have access. But any automations that you create, if you click there, it'll go to that automation and you could edit the automation. I have another video on automations and how to do that. I'm just trying to explain the layout. If you wanted to add a contact through an automation, you can click here and just have them go through an automation. And then you'll notice the active, like if they're actively being followed up with, it'll be right here and it'll show you like auto follow-ups. And just like on tags, there'll be an X next to it, and you could click that X and it'll remove it from the automation if you ever wanted to do it manually. All right, and then we've got opportunities, which we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but this will list all of the opportunities for this contact. And the big three are leads, estimates, and jobs. And if you ever wanted to add an opportunity to the contact, there's a couple places you could do it, but this would be one of those places. Now this might look different for you. This is coming soon, where clients will have their own portal to log in and pay invoices, see contracts, and that sort of thing. And you'll be able to see here if this contact is in a portal or not. Down here, DND stands for Do Not Disturb, which if you send them an email and they click unsubscribe, it'll automatically turn that on. Or you can manually turn these on here. If you turn on emails, Do Not Disturb, and then you try to send them an email, or an automation tries to send it, it won't go through because DND is on for emails. And all the other ways that this person has communicated will be here. So we've got text messages, calls, but there'll be like Facebook messages and some other ones that'll pop up. If you click this, it'll turn it on all Do Not Disturb. And then this one here is for inbound calls and texts. So if you don't want to get calls or texts from a contact anymore, maybe it's a solicitor that keeps calling and just won't stop, you could turn that on, and then you'll no longer get calls or texts coming in from that solicitor. All right, and then down at the bottom, this is some really crucial information that'll help you understand, like, where did this contact come from? And you can see this one says it was created by a manual addition by me. So that means I manually entered this. The goal is to get all of the contacts to go into the CRM automatically. That's one of the ways it's going to save you time. There are still a few instances where you'd have to manually enter it, like if a past client calls and they have a new job that they want you to do. And then it'll show you when it was created, the date and the time. The last thing on here is view audit logs. You should need to go in here, but this is where I would do all the troubleshooting. So you can see it put the contact ID there, and this will list out everything that's ever happened with this contact. You can expand it to 50, and it does it in chronological order. You can see all these things have happened, and it'll say, was it a user? Was it a workflow? You can view the details and see the exact changes that were made. So this can be really helpful for troubleshooting and understanding things, but like I said, you'll probably never need to go in here. All right, so that's this section here. Now the middle section is what I like to think of as a timeline, and it's going to put everything in chronological order. At the very top will be the very first thing that happened to this contact, and then it's just going to show you the things that happened to it. So it'll also have all your communication in here, any emails, phone calls, Facebook messages, that sort of thing. And there's a filter button here where you can filter what you want to see in this timeline. The default is all. Now I just entered a fake number and email, and you'll notice when those are filled out, at the bottom here, this box opens up. We'll talk about that in a minute, but on the filters, now you'll see the conversations, there's more options to filter by. And the default is all, but if I only wanted to see text messages, I could turn that on, and it's only going to show me the text messages. If I only wanted to see activity, I could turn that on, and it'll only show me the activity that's happened to this contact. This logo is showing that, hey, this was an activity, and these are called cards. That'll just show you what activity happened. So you can see as I was turning on the do not disturb, that activity was being logged in here. And then the first thing that happened with this contact is it automatically created a lead. So these little logos here show you what type of activity it was. And this logo here is saying opportunity. And on the bottom left, it'll say what kind of opportunity or what pipeline it's in. And then from here, you can actually view the opportunity. It'll bring up the opportunity page. We can see an opportunity was created, and you could filter like if you only wanted to see invoices, payments, that sort of thing. Like I said, the default is all, or if you just turn these off, it'll default back to all. Now down here is where you can communicate in whatever ways are available. So if we wanted to send an SMS, we could just start typing here and it would send one. If we wanted to send an email, we could send one right here. If you have a Yelp integration and they have a conversation through there, you could do that. This one doesn't, that's why nothing shows up. You'll also notice in the SMS, it'll default to your default number that you designate in the CRM and the default number of the contact. So on this number here, I can click edit and I can add more numbers. But whatever one has got the check mark right there, that's the primary one. And that's the one it'll default to. But if you have more than one number in the CRM that you use, you can switch it here. And if you wanted to send it to a different number, if you have multiple for that contact, you could switch it here. And if you're a user and you're assigned a number, like you have a work number, it'll default to yours. Also, when you go to email, it's going to default for the from email, whatever your user email is. But you can come here and you could change it if you have different emails to whatever email you want. Same thing with them. If they've got multiple emails, you can pick which one. You can CC and BC people or different contacts. But that is this section, which basically is your timeline and communication. Just like a text message, it'll show the date and the times for each one. And then if a new day comes, it'll show the date like that. Now over on the right-hand side is all other related stuff connected to this contact. So if you have like a website connected to the CRM or a form on a website or something, or you're using Facebook to advertise and stuff, it'll show the past history. Like they visited this page on this day, they filled out this form, yada, yada. This is a fake lead, so that's not there. That's for another video, but it's going to show you where the lead came from. This right here is tasks. So if there's any tasks that are related to this contact, it'll show up here. This is a place to add extra notes for the contacts. You can just add a note, which is nice because it'll show who added it and at what time. Anything that wouldn't make sense to go into the description here. You'll notice on these boxes, there's this that you can actually grab and drop down. All right, so this is your calendar. So any appointments related to this contact will be listed here. This is your documents. So any documents associated with this contact will be listed here. If you use the e-signature, all that stuff's going to be here. When you're filtering emails and you open one up, you can actually click that you want to save the document and it'll put it over here. This is all your payments. So any invoices, transactions will show up here. You can click here to go directly to them. And you've got actions here as well. So if you wanted to just create a new invoice, you could do that here. If you wanted to add a card to their file, you could do that here. And this last one is any relationships it has to objects. All right, so that's the contact page. Now let's look at opportunities. So I'm just going to come over here and click on opportunities. Now, opportunities is just the name that we use to group different records. So you got your leads, jobs, estimates. Those are like records or pipelines. We call all those opportunities in the CRM. And you'll see you've got your leads, you've got your estimates, and you've got your jobs. These are just in alphabetical order. We've got some other pipelines that you could use, but we're just going to stick to leads, estimates, and jobs here. Okay, so the first thing to know is when you're on leads, it'll show you how many are showing right there. And something that's common is you'll be like, hey, there's no leads in here. If you did a search and you didn't get rid of this, like I just put some random letters in there, you'll see nothing showing. If I hit the X here, delete that, all the leads will show up. Another common thing is you have a filter on there and you can see, hey, there's only 2. What's going on? If this is blue, it's showing you, hey, there's a filter applied. And if you clear out these filters, then it'll show all of your leads. And then you've got your combine view here and then a list view that you can switch between. In either of those, you can sort by like, hey, this is going to do things in order based on create date, or you could change it by different things, which depending on what view you're looking at will be more or less useful. It defaults to created on. You can clear that if you want. And then in this view, they separate each opportunity by these cards here. And you can actually edit how you want these cards to look by clicking here. And all of the fields related to the opportunity will be down here. You can open these up, click them on, move them around, organize it however you like and whatever makes sense. When you press apply, it's going to ask you, should I do this for all pipelines or just leads? And then when you're on list view, you can actually add different rows by just clicking on something. I'll put gross profit in there, and you can grab these and put them in the order that you like. And same thing, it's going to ask you apply to all or just leads, and you can arrange it like this. And soon you'll be able to have lists, just like the smart list on contacts, which the most common will be like this year, last year. So you can just see the leads that are related to this year, because all your leads will live in here forever. That way you have good data. You can go back and see 5 years ago in May, how many leads did I get compared to this May? But you might not want to see all of them, so you can filter it out and create different views. All right, so let's actually look at the opportunity view, which if you click on the card here, this is what the opportunity view looks like. And you've got the details here, and similar to a contact, you've got your different folders separated out. Again, there's one that'll disappear eventually, but it's called disregarded fields. And there's one thing in there and it says do not fill. You just want to make sure never touch this one. Don't put anything there. It's there to help run some advanced automations in the background. And just like on your contact at the bottom left here, you can see how it was created. So this one was created by workflow and automation are the same thing, but it's saying workflow, which is an automation. It shows you the create date, and you can even look at the audit logs and go to the log of how that was created. This is just a quick button to go to your custom field settings if you wanted to like change these fields or something. When you're on this view, this is showing which contact owns this opportunity. So this stuff is the contact info, and this is your opportunity details here. So for a residential, contact name, opportunity name, 9 times out of 10 are going to be the same thing. But for commercial, you might have, address instead of opportunity name. One thing to note is when you are looking at this card, you can click these icons to open up straight into that part of the opportunity. Or if you click the name, you'll notice it gets highlighted. Clicking here will actually take you to the contact, not to the opportunity. All right, so that's a brief tour of the CRM and the things we're going to be talking about. So now let's go through that walkthrough of going from a lead to a job. So I'm going to go back to contacts. Ideally, you want every single contact to be automatically created, whether it's a website lead, coming in from Angie's list, coming in from a phone call, coming in from a Facebook message. That would be the first big goal, is to get everything coming in automatically. Every time something comes into the CRM, it's going to create a contact. And that's step one where everything starts. A quick note, if you're entering stuff after the fact, just so you have good data, like let's say that you did a job last week, but it didn't go through the CRM and is not in there, but you want it to be in there. You actually don't want to create a contact and go through all this. You just want to go straight to auto create estimates and jobs right here and fill out this information, and it will create automatically for you the lead, the estimate, the job, and put them all in the right spots so that you have good data integrity. but all other contacts, it should be live. So right when you get the contact is when it should go in there. Okay, so all new contacts, when they come in, I'm just going to create another fake one here. We'll say a fake lead 101. If you have to manually enter a lead, all you need to focus on is this top part. Don't worry about any of this stuff down here. It'll automatically put it in the right spots for you. Just if they've got multiple emails, add multiple. If they got phone numbers, add that. And if you don't have either, all you need is a name. But don't worry about the contact type or the time zone. So I'm just going to press save. And it's going to take me to that contact to fill out the rest of these fields here. And you'll notice in the timeline, this just happened. So every time a new contact comes into the CRM, it's going to automatically create a lead. And that's the first thing you'll see right here. So later in the video towards the end, we're going to talk about how do you handle duplicate leads or past customers with multiple jobs. But I just wanted to make a quick note. When you bring leads into the CRM automatically, you want to make sure that you're always creating a lead, not just a contact. Because if you do get a duplicate lead and you're bringing it in, just say create contact, you can't have duplicate contacts. So it's just going to edit the contact info and go on that contact, and you won't have a lead for it. Because if it's already in there, it's not going to create another lead, because the creation of the contact makes the lead. And since you didn't create a new contact, if you bring it in that way, no lead is created. There's other things you could do, like notify yourself each time, but to make it the best, simplest system, just always, whether you're using Zapier or a webhook or whatever, just make sure in your workflow that you select add opportunity and put lead new. I have another video on how to do that, and this will hopefully start to make more sense when we talk about duplicate leads and past clients with multiple jobs and stuff. But you'll also notice if you create a lead and there is no contact, it'll automatically create a contact, and vice versa. New contacts create a new lead. New leads without a contact will create a contact. So this is what the Office user is responsible for in step 1, is going through all the new contacts that came into the CRM and organizing them. Because a lot of times you'll notice the people that fill out the form on the website, they're not actually a lead. They're a scammer, they're a solicitor. A lot of the phone calls you get from new numbers are not actual leads. So that's what this new list is right here, is it's showing you, hey, here's all the new leads that came in. So step 1 for going from lead to job is to go through the contacts and figure out if it's a lead or not. So if it is a lead, the office or whoever is going to be trying to convert it to an estimate can immediately text them, call them. We'll put a fake number in here. And now you can see we have the ability to text them, email them, and if you click right here, it will call them right from your computer. And if you're on the app, you can do that as well. So this first field, the reason why it's the first one is so that you can identify what it is. So if you leave it as blank, unknown, lead, or customer, the lead will stay there. But if we say it's something else, like it's a vendor like Sherwin-Williams or a paint manufacturer calling you to get you to use their paint, maybe it's an internal staff member, so like a subcontractor calls you, gets entered in the CRM, or one of your employees emails you, the CRM picks it up, you would just say, hey, actually this is internal staff. And you've got different options. Subcontractors, maybe it's an applicant, someone looking for a job. You'll get a lot of solicitors. Nowadays, unfortunately, the robocalls are insane. So you'll get a lot of called and hung up. It just rings and then they hang up or don't leave a voicemail. Scammers, you can always use other. And then abandoned chat is if you have a little widget on your website that tries to interact with people and get a new lead. If they start chatting there and they leave before they give us their name and phone number, that sort of thing, you can put abandoned chat. And you'll notice when we do this, like I'm going to put vendor and press save, that it deletes the lead because that's not a lead and we don't want that in our data. And you'll also notice right here it says 1 of 8, and that's the list. So I'm on new and I start with the first one and it's showing me 1 of 8, and I can just click to go through these. So again, it's designed for speed, just to quickly organize these guys. So we'll just do a couple more examples. I'll be like, oh, this was someone looking for a job. Save, go to the next one, and look at what information came in, right? A lot of times when it comes in, it's going to come in with the lead source. It'll come in with the campaign ID if you're like running ads and stuff. You know, if there's a description, you'll have some information here. Depending on how you have it set up, it'll either already have the estimator's name there, or you'll pick which estimator is going to do this job based on territory or however you do it. But I'll just put other, save, and let's go to the next one. So let's say that this is a real lead. The second job of the office is to try to convert the lead to an estimate. And all they need to do in the system is just change the stage of the lead. And what I mean by stage is on the leads opportunity page, these are in order and these are the stages. And there's 4 different ways the user can change the stage of a lead. The first way is to do it manually by just opening up the opportunity and changing it. So there's 3 different ways that you can actually get to the opportunity. 2 ways are actually from the contact view here. If we scroll down to opportunities and we open this up, it'll show all the opportunities associated with that contact. First, it's going to show you the stage, and then in parentheses, it'll show you the record type or the pipeline it's in. So we have one lead that's under new, and if I click this edit button, it's going to bring up the opportunity details page where we can change the stage. The other way we can get there is we can find in our timeline here activity cards that have lead on it, and we can actually click view opportunity and it'll bring up that same opportunity view where we can change the stage right here. And then the last way is we can actually go to opportunities, go to leads, find the lead here, whether we just look for it, search for it, and we can either click here, brings up the same view and change it, or you can actually move it over manually like this. So that's what I mean by manually move the lead. The second way that you can move the lead is with tags. Now this is only for leads. This is not for jobs or estimates, but you'll notice on this opportunity here, these stage options, there is a tag for all of those options. And the tags are listed in alphabetical order. You can just start typing. So like outside of service area, if I type out, it pulls it up right there. And the reason why I made it so that you can use tags is all for that efficiency and speed. When the office is either going through the new list or the lead call list, there might be a lot of stuff in here, like a conversation stuff, and to find it and click here or to come here, open this up, change it, and then press update just takes a little bit more time. So it's faster to just come add a tag. The other thing with tags, you don't have to press save. You just add the tag and then they can go to the next one. So it's just a little bit quicker and faster. And I'll briefly touch on tags real quick. Like I said, it doesn't work for estimates or jobs. And as a lead goes through the pipeline, you'll be able to see the tags here. When they're a lead, any stage they've been in with the lead, except for new, will be listed. So you can see, outside of service area, or maybe it was contacted, need to follow up, and then estimate set. But as soon as the estimator says what happened at the estimate, those tags will go away. And then the only tags you'll see are ones related to the estimate. Same thing with jobs. And eventually once the job is completed, the only tag that contact will have is past client. So the third way you could put in a stage here, other than manual or tags, is if you actually set up an estimate through the CRM under appointments here, it will automatically update the stage to estimate set. We'll talk about that in a little bit. The fourth way is with automations. So you can come into automations, create an automation that will change the stage of an opportunity. An example of one is if you come down here and you put a date in to ask to be contacted at a later date. So I'm just going to say January 20th and press save. That'll automatically move the lead from new to contacted, follow-up needed. So as they're going through the new list and they go to the next one, they'll get through the new and they'll basically say, hey, all these new contacts that came in, are they basically like junk, like a solicitor, or are they an actual lead? And after you get through the new list, there's this lead call list, which you'll notice right now is empty. But this will be all the leads that we should be actively trying to reach out to and turn into an estimate. Now you'll notice on that lead, I changed the ask to be contacted at a later date to a date in the future. But this is a lead we will want to follow up with, but it's not on our lead call list. And that's because we don't want to be following up with them right now. We need to wait until that date comes. So on January 20th, that lead will show up in this call list. So those are the ways that the office can update the stage. And that is all the office needs to do, is just update the stage. The rest of the things will be done automatically. So let's take a look at these stages. They're basically 3 different kinds. There's pending, yes, and no. And they're in that order. So contact attempted is pending, right? We've called them, texted them, emailed them. We haven't got a hold of them, but we've attempted to. Never messaged back is for some specific leads you don't actually have contact information. Like Yelp and Thumbtack, you can communicate through their user interface and all you have is like a messaging board, but you don't have a phone number and email. I like to separate those leads out because I feel like they can skew the data if I'm trying to determine how good the office is doing in terms of converting leads. If there's 100 in there that just never messaged back and I can see we messaged them quickly and a lot, I'm going to take that into account versus, if we're not using Yelp at that time and the lead conversion is a lot higher, that's why that's there and that's what that stage is. Contacted, follow-up needed, would be that example I just gave where they said, hey, call me in a couple of weeks. Or maybe you call them and they're like, hey, I'm busy right now driving. Can you give me a call tomorrow? Something like that. Or you are currently messaging them and you're just trying to set it up over email. We're going to come back and talk about reschedule, previously set estimate, in a minute, because this one will never actually get manually put there. It'll be done with an automation. But the last pending is this unresponsive right here. And you'll notice these are, in the same order. So unresponsive is for when you feel like the office, it's not worth their time following up with them anymore manually. We're still going to follow up with them, but it's going to be done with automation. So it's going to text and email through the system. My company's policy is if we've reached out to them 10 times and left 3 voicemails and they're just not getting back to us, I still want to follow up with them, but I don't want my office administrators spending time continuing to follow up with them because it's usually just a dead end or a waste of time. So you can watch the video on the automations that are built in, but just know if you put a lead under unresponsive, 2 things will happen. 1 is it'll no longer show up on the lead call list. 2 is it will once a week text, email, alternate back and forth, assuming we have both email and text. If you just have one, it'll just do that one every week. If you want to turn that off or set a limit, like I only want to follow up for X amount of weeks, you can easily do that. Won't go over that in this video, but in automations, you can set that up. But the default is it's just going to follow up with them forever until they respond. And again, I don't want to talk too much about automations. So the last thing I'll say about it is for any automation where it's following up with them, if they respond, it stops following up immediately, won't follow up again, and it'll notify the user saying, hey, this person was in these automations to follow up. They just responded. You should take over the conversation. All right, so those are all the pending. Now, the goal is to have it come to estimate set, and that would be the yes. So the best way to do this is to connect your calendar to the CRM and book the appointment through the CRM so you can take advantage of the automations like that. It will send a text message 24 hours before just saying, hey, friendly reminder, I'm going to be there tomorrow at 2, which if you're wondering, under marketing snippets, all of the pre-written stuff is right here. So you can come in here and change it to your liking. You can see all the unresponsive lead emails and text are right here. You can press edit, change it to your own liking, but they're all pre-written ready to go for you. But if you set an estimate through here, it's going to automatically move the lead to estimate set. Now, if you don't have the calendar hooked up, you can do it manually or you can do it with the tag. But if we move this to estimate set, some things are going to happen. And we'll talk about exactly what happened after we go through the rest of these stages. But one thing I really want to know is this estimate done and set. You're never going to manually put a lead there or mark that as the stage. That'll be automatically done after the estimate is done, which we'll talk about here in a sec. But just know you're not actually going to move it to estimate done and set when you set an estimate. It's always estimate set. It'll automatically move to estimate done and set after the estimate is done. But the rest of these are all no's. And like I was saying before, you don't want to just delete the lead if it turns into a no. When it comes to making decisions, if you're wondering, I wonder if I expanded my service area, how much work do you think we could book if we did that? Well, let's go look at how many leads we got outside of our service area last year. You want to know, okay, if I get 100 leads, where do all 100 of those leads go on average? If you convert 50%, that means 50 are going to go to estimate done and set. So let's go back to this lead that we moved the lead from new to estimate set. And that's all we did. The office person doesn't really need to fill out anything else or do anything else. If they want, they could put some notes on the description that pertains to the lead. There's a description on the actual lead as well as on the contact. But my point is all they have to do is change the stage. And what that did, you can see there was a activity card where it created an estimate. And this can be really confusing because you have 2 opportunities and they're both under estimate set. And the reason is if we go to our estimates, we want the system to create an estimate when it gets set so that the estimator can take that estimate and say what happened where they're going to put a different stage. But it's going to start under estimate set because we haven't done the estimate yet. It's just set and it creates that opportunity right when the estimate gets set. Okay, so once the estimate is set, the office portion of the job is done. And now we're into sales or the estimators portion or what they're responsible for and what they would do. So for estimators, they're going to live right here in the opportunities under this estimate pipeline. And they're just going to do their estimate and then they're going to say what happened at the estimate. And they're going to find the estimate under estimates and estimate set. So you can even filter this out to say estimator is estimator's name so that all they see is their estimates and they just know, hey, they're all right here. I went to Susie's house. Let me just click on Susie. And now I'm going to say what happened at the estimate. So the estimator would open this up, and on this estimate details page, they only need to put in two different things: the stage and the opportunity value, or the price. If it's think about it and you gave them options, they don't know the price, just pick whichever one you think is most likely for them to sign up with. So I'm just going to put a fake amount right here. And then the stage, it's similar to the leads. There's only three options: yes, maybe, and no. So yes is booked. If you do the estimate, they sign up right then and there, booked on the spot. Booked on the callback is for if you give them the estimate, they're like, hey, let me think about it for a week. They call back a week later and sign up. That's what booked on the callback is. These next four are all of your maybes. So we've got did not have all decision makers think about it, other estimates, and then not painting this year. And then the rest of them are all no's. And you just put why they said no. Price is too high. They're going to hire someone else, decide to do it themselves. You get the point. So I'm just going to put think about it for right now. So that's all that they need to change is the stage and the opportunity value for the opportunity details. But then they also want to go to the estimate info and just fill out all the information about the estimate. So under estimate info, you've got these three different dates here, a few check boxes, and it should list the estimator's name right here. It'll automatically do that. If it's not, then something was set up wrong. But if it's blank or wrong, they would just change it here, but that'll automatically be entered. So really they're just entering these three dates and maybe checking some boxes. So the first date is the estimate done date. So if they're doing it live, they would just click there and press now because it's today. But sometimes they're busy, they got to run to the next estimate, whatever it is. I make my guys enter their stats once a week by our one-on-one meeting. All stats are in. So they could say, hey, this one was done on the 8th. So if you pick one of these three maybes, did not have all decision makers, think about it, other estimates, it will follow up with them. It'll also do it under not painting this year, but it'll be a little bit different. So for those three, didn't have all decision makers, think about it, other estimates, it's going to default to 1 week. So if we don't put anything here, we leave it blank, or whatever date is in here is in the past, like if today is the 17th and the 14th was selected or something, it will default to 1 week. So it's going to follow up with them in 1 week from the time that I press update, not from the estimate done date, but from the time I press update. The other option is you put a date in here. Maybe they said they'd let you know by Monday. So I would select Monday. And now the system is going to follow up with them on Monday. The estimate close date is the date that you actually closed the job. So if it was booked on the spot, it's going to be the exact same as the estimate done date. But if it's a callback, the estimate done date might be the 8th, but you might have not booked it till, say, the 21st. For no or pending estimates, the estimate close date is blank. All right, now this checkbox for yes, the first two is just information that I like to keep when I'm looking at my stats. I like to know how many jobs did we book where we got a deposit versus not. Some commercial jobs we won't get a deposit, and I pay my estimators based on when we collect some of the money. So if we don't get a deposit, they have to wait till the job's done before they get paid on that job. So that's why we track that. Digital estimate is when you didn't get to meet the person or the contact face-to-face in person. So it was all done digitally, all over email or phone call or however. A scenario where that would happen is they live in a different state and they have a rental here that they need painted. So we never actually got to meet them. And I just like to see what's the difference in booking rate between face-to-face estimates versus where we don't get to meet them. That's why I like to track it. So you just turn those on if those are true. Now these two are really important. The first one is remove contact from all follow-up automations. If you don't want it to follow up with this contact, but for some reason you still want to put it in a maybe, you just turn that on and it won't follow up with any contact. The re-add contact to estimate follow-up is, like I said before, if they respond, it's going to stop following up with them. So maybe it follows up with them. They're like, hey, give me another week. Because they responded, it's not going to follow up with them again. You're going to take over the conversation, say whatever you need to say, and then you can re-add them to estimate follow-up by clicking here and just make sure that this date is the date that you want. If the date is in the past, or if there is no date, it'll default to 1 week. Or if it's a date in the future, it will use that date. Now, the only other difference is if you pick not painting this year, instead of defaulting to 1 week, it defaults to 1 year. But there's a lot of situations where, say you do the estimate in fall and they say, I want to wait till next year. You probably don't want to wait till fall to follow up with them. You probably want to follow up with them in spring. So that's when you'd put a date in here. But like I said, the default is 1 year. All right, so once the estimate is no longer under estimate set, the lead will get automatically moved from estimate set to estimate done and sent. And just for an example, we got this fake lead 21, right? And if we come down to the opportunities, we'll see, hey, there's estimate set. And that's why it can be a bit confusing. But one is the estimate, the other is the lead. Now, when the estimator says what happens at the estimate, so we'll just put Let's put they went with other company. I'll put 2,500, update, and you'll see the automations running. And one thing you'll see is it changes the status of the estimate and the lead. And that's done automatically, and that'll color code your opportunities in this view right here so we can see, hey, the estimate is green. It went from blue to green. Blue is pending, maybe. Green is 1, and the lead was 1 because we turned it from a lead to an estimate, and that was the goal. The estimate, however, is red because we didn't win the estimate. It's not blue, which would be, how it starts estimate set, or one of those maybe, think about it, other estimates. If we won the estimate, it turned green, and then this one is red because we lost it because they went with another company. All right, so let's cover this reschedule previously set estimate stage that I skimmed over earlier. I would recommend using this system. It's the simplest, and after trying others, I find it's the best for all parties in terms of easy to teach, easy to understand. But when you set an estimate, it's going to show up like this in the estimator's calendar. And you can configure these settings in the calendar settings. But one thing I like to have in there is a cancellation link. So the default is when you set an estimate for a contact, it will send them a calendar invite as well as an email letting them know of the date and time. But in this calendar invite, there is this cancellation link. Now, it doesn't matter why or who cancels the estimate or for whatever reason. To keep it all simple, anytime a set estimate is not going to take place, you should use this link to cancel it. So one way that would happen is the actual client needs to cancel. They come here, they click the link and cancel. Another way would be the estimator gets there, they knock on the door, nobody's home, it's a no-show. Or the estimator, for whatever reason, had to cancel the estimate. If you click the link, it's going to bring up this page. And you'll notice you can't click cancel appointment until you put in a reason. So it requires a reason. Now, if the client does it, they're going to put their reason in here. And if it's the estimator, they would put something like no show or whatever the reason is, and then press cancel appointment. That'll do a few things. One is it's going to text the estimator to let them know it was canceled. That way, if they're on their way to the estimate or they're just doing estimates for the day and their last one cancels, they get a notification right away so they can adjust their schedule. The next thing is if the estimator and office are two different people, it's going to assign that contact back to the office. It's going to move the lead from estimate set over to reschedule previously set estimate. It will also delete the estimate that was under estimate set for that contact. And then the office, when they go to their lead call list, any leads under reschedule estimate will show up here. And then they know, hey, I need to look at this and either try to reschedule it, or they may need to move it to the lost stage. Whoever is doing the office work will get a email or task that'll let them know that this happened and it needs to be rescheduled or moved to a lost stage. And in that task or email, it will show you the reason that they put in right here. Another way to see the reason is if you go to the contact and you go to the appointments, at the bottom of the appointment, it'll give you the cancellation reason. It'll show what they wrote. But if you follow that system, you should never really manually be putting leads under reschedule. There are some instances where that would happen, but most of the time you're going to follow that system. You're going to click the link. You're going to put in a reason. It's going to move the lead to reschedule. It's going to delete the estimate. It'll show up on the lead call list, and whoever's working the office will be able to see the history, what happened, and then they can address it appropriately. All right, so now let's go all the way through the pipeline, right? This is a lead. You call them, you set up an estimate, which hopefully you're doing here. You can change it here. We can also just add the tag of estimate set. The automations will run. It moved the lead to estimate set. It created an estimate under estimate set. Then the estimator says, hey, booked on the spot. It was for $4,000. Those are the only things they need to update on the opportunity details. We're just going to say now, because it was booked on the spot. We got a deposit. We met them in person. It's not going to follow up with them, so we don't need to worry about that because it's not under maybe. Just press update. Now, one important thing to know is that it takes 5 minutes for a job to be created, but an automation will run where it'll create a job if an estimate is marked as booked on the spot or booked on callback. It used to immediately do it, but I learned over time that it's better to have that 5-minute delay. That gives the estimator time to make sure they filled everything out okay. Sometimes After you mark it as booked and you go here, you need a little bit of time to fill this out. Maybe they wanted to put some notes in here about the estimate that's going to copy over to the job. It's just to make sure that your data is complete and good. If I open automations, you can see it's running the automation of estimate change to book. So as soon as this automation is done running, the job will be created. All right, so when you mark an estimate as booked, under the jobs pipeline, it will create a job and put it under this first category right here of not ready. So this fake vendor one I chose is going to turn into a job after 5 minutes. If you want to change it to 2 minutes or something like that, just email me and we can get that done for you. And now you can see we've got one lead, one estimate, and one job for this contact. And now this is when the production would take over. And production is going to be in this pipeline of jobs. Now we just have this not ready, ready, in progress, done, not paid, done, and paid. If you wanted to add extra steps, you can. Just go to pipelines, go to your jobs, press edit, and you could add another stage, and then you can move them around. I would leave the stages that are in there. You can rename them to what you like, but there's automations built on these. So if you delete them, some of them might not work. If you want to do something besides add a new one or change the name, just let us know and we can help make sure that whatever you're trying to accomplish gets done right and that all the automations you want running are running. But let's look at, if we open one up, we have the same view as before, but this is where the production manager would want to enter the job information. So the production manager name should be here automatically. That way you can, filter by, hey, I only want to see production manager A's jobs or production manager B's jobs. And then we've got this job calculator. This might change in the future of how it looks in the process of updating it and making it better, but it'll essentially be the same concept to where we know the job size right here. This one's 5365. And you can do job costing. So we could put the labor was $2,000. The materials was $600. Usually there's no other job related cost, but maybe we had to put $25 for whatever reason. When you fill this out, if you turn this on and press update, it'll calculate your gross profit and your gross profit margin. You'll have to refresh it or just close it and reopen it. But now you can see it shows what the gross profit is and the gross profit margin. And you can see that box is no longer checked. So if you made a mistake and it was like, oh, it was actually a 35 or it changed or something, you can come in here, change that, hit calculate gross profit, and it'll update your gross profit. And a nice view for that is you can come here, we can manage fields, go to our job info, we can say we want to see all this stuff and have it listed out here for you. So you can see your gross profit on every job. You can always export this into a CVS file, which is like a spreadsheet, if you want to manipulate your data or look at it differently. And future updates will be coming where we can save different list views and eventually to where you'll just be able to click on here on a cell and change it. Right now, if you wanted to change something in this view, you'd turn it on and edit that opportunity, or you could turn multiple on and edit them all at the same time. So if you wanted to move all of these to say done and paid, you'll notice stage isn't available. It's because you actually have to click on pipeline. You definitely want to keep it in jobs. You don't want to be moving them out of there. But the stage, you could move to done and paid. So I'll press save. You can label the bulk update. It'll just default to the date and time. That way, if you're ever like, wait, what happened there? You can go to your bulk actions and you'll see all the past stuff that happened and you can see what happened and correct any errors or something like that. All right, and that's production. So now let's go back and let's talk about how do you handle duplicate leads or contacts that have more than one job. So first, I want to outline 3 different scenarios on how this situation can come up. So scenario 1 is, let's say you get a website lead. You sign them up for an estimate and they're in the pipeline, right? Maybe they've gotten the estimate and we're producing it, or they're just somewhere in between, they're not done. Sometimes that client will be like, oh, I need to tell them something. Like maybe you're painting their house and they're like, oh, I'm not going to be there Wednesday. I should let the painters know. For whatever reason, that client decides the way they're going to let you know is they're going to go to your website and they're going to fill out a contact form. What that would do is it's going to generate another lead, because the system doesn't know if they're just trying to give you an update or if it's a year later and now they want their interior done. All right, now the second scenario is, let's say that you're purchasing leads from Thumbtack. Lead comes in through your website and it's for Jan Smith. Then maybe an hour later, 20 minutes later, the next day, a lead for Jan Smith comes in through Thumbtack. You got a duplicate lead, even though they are from 2 different lead sources. It came into the system twice. Now the third scenario would be you have one client where you're doing multiple jobs. So it could be you did their exterior this year, a year later, they fill out your contact form and they want their interior done. Or maybe it's a commercial job. You're working for ABC Construction. You're currently working on job A, but then they also want to bid on job B. So you have like simultaneous jobs going on. Those are the different ways that duplicate leads are going to come in. All right, so as I mentioned before, every time a new contact is created, a lead is created. And new leads are going to come into the system two ways, automatically, or you may have to manually enter it. And when you have multiple leads for one contact, that's actually when it's more common to have to manually enter a new lead. Mainly because if you think about it, it's already a contact or a client. They need another job done. They're going to give you a call, say, hey, I need an estimate on this property. So it's not going to come in a traditional way like through your website. So I just want to quickly show you how do you add another lead to an existing contact. So there's two main ways to do it. One is you go to that contact. So I would just search for the contact here, or you can search here. After you find the contact, if you scroll down to your opportunities, it's going to list all the leads, estimates, jobs associated with the contact, and there can be multiple. But you'll notice this add button right here, we can add a new lead right here. And you just want to make sure the pipeline is under leads. It might be under estimates when you click that. You want to put leads, make sure the stage is new. Depending on the situation, you'll probably want to give this opportunity name a unique name because the default is the contact name. But when you have multiple leads, you might want to differentiate them by like the address or something like that. If it's commercial, we'll usually just use the address and not have the contact name in it. I'm just going to put 2 here to show that this was the second lead that came in. And that's how you can manually enter a lead. All right, now sometimes having multiple leads under the same contact can create some issues. And I feel like if you really understand and comprehend why, navigating and handling this stuff is a breeze. You just need to understand the concept. Kind of like if you understand addition, you can add multiple different things as long as you understand the concept. So the reason why multiple leads can create an issue is because a lot of automations are going to run pertaining to just the lead, not estimates and jobs, but just the lead based on an action that happens on the contact. And we call that a trigger. So a trigger happens on the contact, and then it says to take an action on the opportunity or the lead. Now, the reason this is an issue is if I set an estimate, right? If I come here and set an estimate, well, there's 2 leads, so which one should be moved to estimate set? There's no way to know when we're doing something to the contact. So if I were to put like outside a service area here, the system isn't going to know which one to move. The default is it's always going to move the most recent contact because that's the most common and likely one. And that's why in our scenarios, if it's a scenario where it's 2 leads that are just different jobs, and this is happening later, so the contact calls you back later after the first lead has already gone to its final stage, which is either a 1 stage, which would be like estimate done and sent, or a lost stage, then everything works as normal. You don't have to worry about it. When it's a problem is when it's in any of these stages that are maybe, right? When it's still being processed or moved through the pipeline, trying to get to this estimate done and sent or one of these lost stages. And those other scenarios, that's more likely to happen. So to resolve this and deal with it, what the CRM is going to do is every time a new lead comes in under an existing contact, it's going to check and see, does this contact have a lead that's already in one of these stages, including estimate set, unresponsive, all the way up to new, any of these stages? Then it's going to know, hey, I need to notify the user so that they can handle this appropriately. And it's good to know the way that it's actually checking is it's looking to see if the contact has any of those tags. And what you'll notice is as a contact moves through the pipeline, it will have the tags for every stage it goes to. But as soon as the estimate is done, it'll go to estimate done and sent, and all those tags will go away. So that is how it knows if it has a current lead that's moving through the pipeline. So we just created the second lead, and it already had one that was under new. So it does 2 things. One is it adds this repeat lead / estimate tag to the contact, which is a very important tag we'll talk about here in a minute. But it also is going to notify the user, depending Depending on your notification settings, it'll either be through email or it'll create a task. The default is it creates a task, and the task is just going to say the contact, Shane 8, already exists and another lead was created for them. Check and see if it's a duplicate lead or if it's a past lead client. So if you didn't manually enter this and you didn't know, you would come to this contact and you would try to figure out, what happened here, what's going on. And the easiest way I find is just come down to opportunities, and you can see the opportunities right here. In the timeline, sometimes it's hard to see because you have a bunch that say leads and you don't know which one's which. But if you come to opportunities, it'll list all the opportunities associated with that contact. And that's when you're just going to figure out what happened. So when it is a real duplicate lead, whether it was a mistake, like the contact went to your website, filled out a contact form, pressed send, and then wasn't sure if it actually went through, so they just did it again real quick and 2 came in, or that other example where you actually did get the same lead from 2 different lead sources. And this is when you're going to have to make a decision on how you'd like to do it. Your 2 options are you delete one lead and then delete the tag and then proceed as usual, because then when you do actions that do automations, it's just going to act on the most recent lead. You deleted one, so there's only one, so it'll act on that one. You just want to make sure that you also delete the tag repeat lead tag, because this is how the system knows that there are 2 leads in there. Your other option is you don't delete one, you just put one under duplicate leads, which is a stage right here, duplicate lead. And the reason why you might want to do that is for accurate reporting and data. An example would be, let's say that you're cross-referencing the leads you got in Thumbtack with the CRM. Thumbtack says you got 10 leads, the CRM says you got 9. And that could be because you deleted one of the leads. However, if you put it under duplicate lead, it'll both show 10. And if you're trying to, for billing and stuff, making sure everything adds up, you'd want to make sure you don't delete it, you just put it under duplicate. That way you can also remove those when you're trying to figure out your lead conversion rate. I wouldn't count the duplicates. So that's what we do for my company. We will delete a lead if it was something like a notification. For example, if they went to our website, filled out a contact form just to let us know that they can't do the estimate this Wednesday and they need to reschedule or something like that. It doesn't really matter too much which one you do. I'm just explaining your 2 options for how to handle those 2 different scenarios. So there's one more thing to be aware of when you move a lead to duplicate. Remember, the CRM is going to do the automations and act on the most recent lead. So if you move the most recent lead to duplicate and then you set an estimate, it's going to want to move that duplicate to set estimate, and then that other lead won't move. So just make sure the one that you move to duplicate is the oldest lead or the first one that came in. And the way you can tell is you can open these up and you can see, okay, this one came in at 6:23 a.m. This one came in at 6:19. So this was the first one or the oldest. So I would move this one to duplicate. Now, one more wrinkle there, just for your reporting, just keep in mind that if it did come from 2 different lead sources, you're putting the first one under duplicate. So say this one's website and the other one's Thumbtack, and just make sure that's okay with you and your systems and processes. If it isn't, you can just swap the lead source. So you can just come in here and type Thumbtack and switch the other one to website. That way it's structured the way you want. Or as long as you don't delete this repeat lead tag and you do something like, I'm going to check this task off because that's just saying, hey, you've got duplicate leads, do something about it. And I decide, hey, I'm just going to leave this on here. If I set an estimate, the normal automations that would run aren't going to run, and the system is going to let the user know, hey, this happened. I would normally do that automatically, but because it's a repeat lead or whatever the situation is, please do it manually. And you'll notice that's the theme throughout the CRM. If you ever do something that would normally cause an automation to happen, and for whatever reason the automation cannot happen, it will notify you to say, hey, I would normally do this, but I can't, so can you please do it manually? So you can see here it says the tag estimate set was added to this contact, but there's multiple leads for the contact, so the CRM's not sure which one to move. Please manually move the appropriate lead to estimate set. So if this was like a commercial job and there was property A and property B, it doesn't know which one did you set the estimate for. So you would manually open up whichever property and move it to estimate set. So if you leave that tag there, basically some of the automations the CRM will ask you to manually do. Okay, so we covered what to do in those first 2 scenarios, whether it was like a mistake lead or you actually got duplicate leads from different sources. So now let's talk about that 3rd scenario, where it's actually leads for different jobs under the same contact. So it really depends on the timing of when these leads come in. And the easiest one is if the second or whatever number, third, fourth, fifth, when another lead comes in, if the previous leads are already in their final stage, for instance, estimate done and sent, then you don't have to do anything. You won't even get the duplicate lead notification. It'll just act as normal, just proceed as normal. Now the tough scenario is when they come in at the same time, or when one of the leads is still being moved through the pipeline. And the easiest thing to do there is just leave that tag there, and you have to do a couple things manually. Now another scenario would be when the lead is in its final stage, so it's under estimate done and sent, but the estimate is still pending, so it's still under think about it. But even in that scenario, everything works as normal, and you would just continue. And the reason for that is because the previous leads are already done. They're not being moved through the pipeline. So if I add a tag here or I set an estimate, it's going to act on the most recent and everything will work as normal and fine. And that's it. That's how you handle duplicate leads in the system. Now there is one more wrinkle I'm going to talk about, which will actually be fixed in an upcoming update. So once that update happens, I'm going to delete this part of the video and it won't be in there. But until this update happens, there's one little wrinkle that'll still happen. And right now, there is a limitation in the CRM to where it can only do automations on the most recent opportunity. So before we talked about there's an automation where the trigger is on the contact, and if there's multiple leads, it doesn't know which one to affect. Another scenario would be where the trigger, the change takes place on the actual opportunity. So a common example would be you have a estimate, which is an opportunity under think about it, and you move it either to booked or went with another company or another loss stage. An automation that'll normally run in that scenario is it's just going to change the status, this right here, to lost or won. And normally that works fine because you're usually affecting the last one. But let's say that you have two estimates under think about it for like a commercial contact, and you move the older one, not the newest one, to booked. Until that update happens, you're going to get a notification that says the CRM can only do automations on the most recent opportunity. You just moved this estimate to booked on the spot. Can you please manually change the status to won? So again, going along with that theme, if it ever can't do something, it'll let you know. And it is programmed to know like, hey, if this wasn't the newest one, just let them know and ask them to manually do it. The other common scenario that this happens is on the job cost cards. If you go to calculate the gross profit and it's not the newest job for that client or contact, you'll get a notification saying, hey, here's the gross profit and the gross profit margin. Right now, the CRM can't input it on the actual job because it's not the newest job. Can you please manually enter them? It'll still calculate and tell you what the numbers are, but those are the two most common scenarios that you might see pop up. And like I said, this will be fixed soon in an upcoming update, but I just wanted to go over it in case you run into that scenario.